Hey guys, and welcome to The Broken Sword. Today we are focusing on the great hidden city of Gondolin. It was a city of great importance, concealed from both friend and foe during the First Age, and was guarded by the great eagles of Thorondor. But what made it so special, and what was its ultimate fate? Let's find out.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
The round valley of Tumladin within the encircling mountains had at one time been a lake, and in its centre stood a hill that had once been an island called Amon Gwareth. The valley had been emptied years before due to the dry river, creating what was essentially the only entry to the valley. In the 50th year of the First Age, Turgon travelled with his cousin Finrod southward towards Beleriand. At one point in their journey, while resting, Ulmo went to them and laid upon them a deep sleep and disturbing nightmares. None told the other about their dreams, but both began searching for hidden places, just in case Morgoth broke the siege of Angband. It wasn't long before Finrod found the area that he would build his realm in, Nagathrond, but Turgon had not yet found somewhere, so he returned back to Nevrast. 3 years later, the Lord of the Waters came to Turgon upon the shores and commanded that he travel on alone. Guided by the favour of the Valar, Turgon found the valley of Tumladin and decided to found his city upon Amon Gwareth. After the third battle in the wars of Beleriand, the Dagor Aglareb, Turgon took the most skilled of his people and went in secret to the Hidden Vale and began the building of his city. A watch was set to protect them from any intruders or onlookers, but the power of Ulmo also protected them. Over the next 52 years, Turgon dwelt mostly in Nevrast until the city was completed. He gave the city the Quenya name of Ondolinde, which means Rock of the Music of Water. In Sindarin, this is Gondolin. Before leaving, Ulmo appeared to Turgon one last time, telling him, "Now thou shalt go at last to Gondolin, Turgon, and I will maintain my power in the Vale of Sirion, and in all the waters therein, so that none shall mark thy going, nor shall any find there the hidden entrance against thy will. Longest of all the realms of the Eldali shall Gondolin stand against Melkor. Thus it may come to pass that the curse of the Noldor shall find thee too near the end, and treason awaken within thy walls. Then they shall be in peril of fire, but if this peril dwareth nigh indeed, then even from Nevrast one shall come to warn thee." After arriving in the city, its people, known as the Gondolindrim, always continued to labour in its building, ever improving it. Its walls were high and white above the plain, but its most important and prominent feature was the Great Tower of the King, where among the fountains, Turgon himself made Glingel and Belthiel, which were beautiful trees of gold and silver that were made in memory of the two trees of Valinor. Following this, the city saw a period of peace for 2 centuries. As Morgoth was besieged in the far north of the world, the people of Gondolin lived undisturbed. However, in the year 316 of the First Age, Turgon's sister Aradel became tired of a limited life within the walls of the city and wanted to journey outside and travel to Beleriand. Much against her brother's wishes, she left the city. She returned over 80 years later with Maiglin, her son by Eöl, the Dark Elf. If you guys would be interested in seeing a full video on Eöl the Dark Elf or any other characters mentioned in this video, be sure to let us know in the comments down below. Anyway, Maiglin was in awe of the city and Turgon welcomed him as a nephew. However, Eöl had also come with his wife and son to Gondolin and was captured upon entry. He was taken to Turgon, who explained to him the laws of the city, and that those that visited were never allowed to leave in order to keep it secret and safe. Eöl refused to submit to Turgon's authority and instead chose death for himself and his unwilling son. He threw a poisoned dart at his son in order to take him down with him, not allowing him to live without his father. But the dart struck his wife, Aradel, who fell ill due to the poison and would eventually die. The body of Eöl was thrown from a small cliff for his betrayal. However, Maiglin had no part in any of these evil actions, and Turgon accepted him, and he grew to be among the lords of the Gondolindrim. Thus it was in Gondolin, and amid all the bliss of that realm, whilst its glory lasted, a dark seed of evil was sown. In the year 458 of the First Age, Gondolin was drawn into the events of the Dag of Bragollach, when 2 young brothers of the race of men, Hurin and Hor, were cut off from their army and became lost. Thorondor brought them to Turgon's city, and at the request of Ulmo, Turgon accepted them. They remained in Gondolin for close to a year, and despite the laws of the city, Turgon made an exception and allowed them to return to their homes. Both brothers made a promise to not speak of the hidden city to anyone. However, some men began to deduce it, and soon a rumour was spread that had reached the servants of Morgoth. Turgon now devised a new policy for the salvation of the elves. He began secretly sending his people out westward across the Great Sea to seek the land of the Valar and ask their pardon and aid. None of his mariners succeeded, but this was a wise course, as Turgon would know later. As the elves of Beleriand began to arm for a counterstrike to the Dagor Bragollach, Turgon secretly began his own preparations. In the year 472 of the First Age, the Union of Mithros attacked Angband, and Turgon rode for the first time to war. Unknown and unbidden by his kin, he opened the doors of Gondolin and rode to their aid with an army of 10,000. This was to be a disastrous battle that was to become known as the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. The only survivor here was Húrin, who was captured. Morgoth had great fear of Turgon, who was now High King of the Noldor, and wished to destroy him more than any other enemy. Therefore the Dark Lord tortured Húrin and offered freedom, but could not make him reveal the location of Gondolin. The first great blow to the security of Gondolin came by accident. Húrin, who had of course been held captive by Morgoth, was released to wander into the world. He came to the edge of the mountains, hoping that the eagle would bear him to Gondolin. But Turgon, afraid of the lives of those in his city, and rightfully fearing what Morgoth may have done to Húrin, he withheld rescue for too long. Húrin, seeing nothing, cried out in a loud voice, "Turgon, Turgon, remember the fen of Serech. O Turgon, will you not hear in your hidden halls?" Because of this, Morgoth, who had spies, now knew the general area in which Gondolin lay. Húrin turned away, broken and bitter. After Nagathroned and Doriath fell, Gondolin became the last great stronghold of the elves of Beleriand. Ulmo, the patron god of the city, watched with sad eyes, foreseeing the doom of Gondolin. He called forth Tuor, son of Huor, to the sea, where he gave him a message for Turgon. Tuor was guided to the hidden cities by Voronwë, one of those mariners sent by Turgon to the west, who had survived a shipwreck. Ulmo's advice was that Turgon must abandon the city and seek the sea. For though the Valar had barred Turgon's messengers for reaching the Undying Lands, Ulmo foresaw that a direct descendant of the Lords of the Noldor might be allowed to pass the lands of the west. Turgon, because of his pride and love of his city, decided to ignore the warning. Tuor, however, was welcomed in the city by all apart from Maeglin. Unwittingly, Turgon, who had always been so careful about strangers, further advanced the events that would lead to the fall of Gondolin by allowing Tuor to stay. For Tuor and Idril, the king's daughter, fell in love. It was an extremely rare thing for a man to wed an elf woman, but Turgon, who loved Tuor as a son, permitted it when he found that his daughter was full willing. Maeglin hated Tuor for this and plotted his revenge on Idril, and, as the years passed, on their son, Irendil. Later, when searching for ore and straying too far from the city against the commands of Turgon, I should add, Maeglin was captured by orcs. They took him to Morgoth himself, who extracted the information about Gondolin at a price. The death of Tuor and Irendil, the hand of Idril, and the lordship of Gondolin after its capture. Maeglin would eventually return to the city, but kept his capture by Morgoth a secret. Idril, however, who had noticed and rejected his advances, saw and feared the change that had come over him. Therefore, she discussed with her husband the idea of making an escape tunnel. Tuor was confused but willing, and he so complied. In secret, a tunnel that cut through the rock of the hill and out under Tumladin was constructed. Soon after, with Morgoth's plan finalised, he unleashed his army on Gondolin. Tuor and the others would again urge Turgon to flee the assault, but due to his confidence in the invincibility of his city, and the fact that he had Maeglin telling him otherwise, he decided to stay and fight. During the battle, Maeglin had intended to kill Idril and throw Irendil from the walls, but Tuor arrived just in time to save them both, throwing the treacherous Maeglin down into the flames. Sadly, the city could not be saved, and thousands were killed. One by one, the great lords of Gondolin fell, and Turgon, broken-hearted, ordered everyone to follow Tuor out through the tunnel when he finally admitted that the city was going to fall. During their escape, they were stopped by a Balrog. Fortunately, the mighty Glorfindel was there to save the day and kill the demon, dying in the process. They escaped, and Turgon remained in the city during its fall. Now you may be wondering what ended up happening to Gondolin. It is an entire city. Where was it in the Third Age? Well, to my knowledge, it's never specifically detailed, but we know that Turgon died with the city collapsing on him, so we can assume that pretty much all of it was destroyed. And seeing that there were tens of thousands of bodies there, it's unlikely that anyone ever returned to rebuild it, so I would presume by the Third Age it was just in ruins. Not only that, but of course the majority of Beleriand was destroyed and submerged under the sea from the War of Wrath against Morgoth. Only a small section of East Beleriand ever remained, which was known as Lindon. A sad fate for a great city. Of course, ages later, some legendary weapons of Gondolin were found by Thorin and his company in a troll's cave. Elrond recognised them and explained that they were likely ending up in there being plundered by either dragons or goblins. Even in the Third Age, some orcs of the Misty Mountains knew of the legendary Sword of Turgon, remembering how the elves of Gondolin killed hundreds of goblins before their walls. Time has come, as always, to thank all of our patrons and channel members. You guys sticking by us means the absolute world. There has, of course, been lots and lots of hate circulating the Tolkien fandom as of late, which is really, really sad to see and hard to watch. But those of you that have stuck by us, you really, really are the best. So thank you so much again. Thank you all for watching today's video. I really hope you have a great day, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.